Opening the shadow before light, before the beginning, there was only the hum of the earth, deep and endless. The world had not yet been divided into sky, water, and flame. The gods still walked barefoot among mortals, and the stars were only the breath of sleeping dragons. In the age before memory, there was a moon so bright that it shone even beneath the sun. Its silver light fed the rice fields, calmed the storms, and lulled spirits to rest. The people of the ancient kingdoms bowed to it, calling it Chandra May, the mother of night. But as balance gives birth to envy, light draws shadow, and from beneath the roots of the earth, from the black rivers that ran beneath mountains, something stirred, a whisper, a hiss, a hunger. It was Rahu, the serpent of the abyss, born from the remnants of chaos. He was neither god nor demon, neither mortal nor immortal. His scales were darker than Eclipse, his eyes to burning suns swallowed whole. Rahu rose in silence, seeing the moon's light spreading across the heavens, soft and pure. And he felt something he had never known before, desire. He wished to devour that light, not out of hatred, but longing, for he had never known warmth. One night, when the world was young and the stars trembled like frightened fish, Rahu slithered into the sky. The gods cried out, the winds screamed, but nothing could stop him. He opened his mouth, a pit of darkness, endless and consuming, and swallowed the moon whole. The heavens went silent, the seas rose, the earth cracked open like an egg of night, and for the first time in history, the world fell into darkness. The people panicked, they burned incense, they beat drums, they screamed prayers to drive the serpent away. The gods descended, striking Rahu with thunder and flame. But when he bled, his blood turned into shadow and fell upon the earth, birthing the spirits of Eclipse, those who hide between day and night. The gods cursed him, you shall never know peace, forever shall you chase the moon, but never shall you hold it for long. And so the cycle began. Whenever the moon shone brightest, Rahu would rise from the void to devour it, only to lose it again as divine fire tore him apart. This is why the people of the ancient kingdoms say, when the moon darkens, the serpent feeds. They beat their gongs and light their torches, not in fear, but in remembrance, for the serpent is not evil, only hungry for the light he can never keep. And so begins the tale of the Moon Eater, the eternal struggle between light and longing, between the moon who shines and the serpent who chases. A story whispered in every eclipse, a shadow written across the heavens. Welcome back to my channel. This channel specializes in writing about epic tales and myths from around the world. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help me out. Today, we will dive into a story titled The Moon Eater, the Eclipse Serpent of the Ancient Kingdoms. Here is the detailed content. Chapter 1, The Birth of the Serpent. In the beginning, there was no sun, no moon, no time, only the deep breath of the earth. From the molten rivers beneath mountains and the black waters that moved like thought, the world dreamed itself into being. It dreamed of form, of sound, of light, and from those dreams came gods and spirits, flame and rain, wind and seed. But not every dream was bright. Some were made of silence and shadow, fragments of the chaos that the gods cast aside when they shaped the heavens. Those fragments gathered in the hollows of the world, forgotten and formless, whispering to each other in the dark. From that whisper was born Rahu, the serpent of the deep. He was not born in light, nor in warmth, but in the cold womb of the under-earth, where time did not move. His first breath was the hiss of boiling water against stone. His first heartbeat, the rumble of the world's buried fire. He slithered through darkness, blind but aware, feeling the pulse of the world through his scales. The first gods looked down and trembled, for they had not made him. He was a flaw in creation, a shadow left behind when the sun was forged. They called him the nameless coil, the one beneath, the hunger that waits. But the spirits of the deep called him something softer, Rahu, he who sees without eyes. Rahu grew as the world did. As rivers carved valleys and stars lit the heavens, he fed on the quiet between them. He drank the echoes of prayers never answered, feasted on the darkness between stars. The gods spoke among themselves. If he rises, the balance will shatter, the heavens will tremble. So they built a seal, a labyrinth of gold and obsidian beneath the world's spine. There they trapped Rahu, binding his coils in chains of flame. But the gods did not understand what they had imprisoned. Rahu did not rage, he did not break, he simply waited. And as he waited, he began to dream. In his dreams, Rahu saw the surface, saw the forests, the rivers, the sky. He saw creatures walking under the light of something round and beautiful, a pale orb gliding through the night like a goddess clothed in silver. The people called her Chandra May, the Moon Mother, the bringer of calm tides and tender light. Her glow touched even the mouths of caves. Even far below, Rahu felt it, a soft warmth brushing against the cold of his prison. He turned his face upward, and for the first time he longed, not for power, not for vengeance, but for the light he had never known. The chains around him trembled. The fire that bound him flickered. Every time the moon passed full across the sky, the warmth seeped deeper into the cracks of his prison. The spirits of the deep whispered, "He will rise, he will reach for her. And when he does, the world will remember that light and shadow are brothers." And so it came to pass. One night, when the gods rested and the stars held their breath, Rahu stirred. The chains broke like reeds beneath the flood. The earth groaned, mountains split, and rivers boiled. He rose, slow and silent, a mountain of scales and darkness, his body longer than horizons, his eyes twin abysses that devoured starlight. When he reached the surface, the moon hung low, full and luminous. It bathed the world in peace. Rahu gazed at it with awe. His heart, though made of shadow, beat faster. He whispered, a sound like the wind through graves, "Beautiful one, your light touches everything but me." And the moon, in her quiet grace, seemed to answer her reflection, trembling on the waters below. "I am the light for all who wander, but even I cannot shine in the abyss." Rahu trembled. He felt the hunger rise in him, not of cruelty, but of yearning. He wanted to feel that light, to taste it, to hold it within him, if only once. So he opened his mouth. The sky turned black, the stars blinked out, and in one breath he swallowed the moon. For a moment he felt it warmth, light, beauty. It filled him from within, flooding every scale, every vein. He wept, for he had never known joy. But then the light began to burn. It seared him from the inside, a fire too pure for shadow to bear. He screamed, and the sound became thunder. The gods awoke, horrified. They hurled lightning, tore open the heavens, and struck him down. The moon burst from his jaws, pale and wounded, returning to the sky. Where Rahu's blood fell, the earth turned black, and the first eclipses were born, fleeting nights when shadow devours light, only to release it again. And so the gods cast him down once more, cursing him to eternal hunger. Forever shall you chase the moon, devour her light, and lose her again. You will know the sweetness of the heavens only in moments of pain. But as Rahu sank back into the deep, he smiled, for he had touched the light, and in that brief touch, he learned what it meant to be alive. Thus began the cycle that would shape all ages, the moon's flight across the sky, and the serpent's eternal pursuit, a dance of desire and loss, of longing and release, the song of light and shadow written upon the heavens. Chapter 2. The Kingdoms of Light. When the serpent devoured the moon, the world fell into a darkness no one had known before. The rivers froze in silence. The jungles stopped breathing. Even the crickets, those tiny keepers of nights, music went mute, as though the earth itself was holding its breath. In the great kingdoms of the earth, Othaya by the sea, Angkor of the mirrored waters, Champa of the golden coast, and Harapanjaya in the mountains, people looked to the sky and trembled. The moon, the mother of tides and sleep, was gone. The sky was a black wound. Priests and kings gathered in temples lit only by trembling torches. They poured milk into silver bowls and watched it turn dark as the shadow swallowed heaven. Old women wept. Warriors sharpened their spears, and in the sacred halls of Angkor, the oracle of stone whispered, "It is the serpent below, the shadow of the forgotten one. The eater of the sky has risen." The kings argued. Some said it was punishment for pride. Others believed it was the end of all things, the gods abandoning their children. But among the common people, stories began to take root. They said a great serpent, as long as a river and black as storm water, had risen from beneath the earth. They said he swallowed the moon because he hungered for beauty. They said his name was Rahu, and though the moon soon returned, the world was never the same. When the next full moon rose, the priests of Ayodhya built towers of ivory and gold. They climbed to the top and struck gongs of thunder bronze, crying out to the heavens, "Return to us, Moon Mother, hide from the serpent's jaws." In Champa, they burned incense of lotus and sandalwood, sending its smoke skyward like a prayer. In the jungles of the Khmer lands, they carved new faces on temple walls, half woman, half serpent, to guard the moon's path. And in the high mountains of Harapanjaya, the monks began to record each eclipse in secret scrolls, believing that every devouring was a warning from the divine. Yet, amid all the fear, something else took root: reverence. For in the darkness of each eclipse, when the moon vanished and the stars seemed to burn brighter, the people felt something ancient stir inside them. They felt the heartbeat of the worlds, slow, vast, patient. They felt the shadow that lived not only in the sky, but in themselves. The monks began to teach that Rahu was not merely a demon, but a mirror, they said. He is the hunger of all beings, the yearning that devours peace. But without him, the light would have no meaning. Some believed that those who faced the eclipse without fear would see visions of their past lives. Others claimed to hear the serpent's whisper in the wind. All things that shine must be tasted by the dark. Even the moon cannot escape the longing of the void. 1,000 years passed in the space of a breath. The eclipse became a rhythm, a pulse in the heart of the world. Kings rose and fell, temples turned to dust, but the serpent's hunger endured. Every time the moon dimmed, people would beat drums, clang pots, fire arrows at the sky, and shout Rahu's name, not to curse him, but to remind him to let go. It was no longer fear, but ritual. a pact between light and shadow. In some lands, offerings of rice and honey were cast into rivers, said to appease his endless hunger. In others, warriors painted their shields with the mark of the serpent, believing Rahu's gaze would bless them with the courage to face darkness. And once, in the city of Ayodhya, a young priestess named Sita dreamed of Rahu himself. In her dream, the serpent lay coiled beneath a mountain of crystal, his body glowing faintly with the remnants of the moon's light. He spoke in a voice like thunder rolled in silk. "Little flame, do not fear me. I do not devour to destroy, devour to remember. For every light that vanishes teaches the dark to dream of dawn." When Sita awoke, tears stained her eyes. She knelt before the rising moon and whispered, "Then the eclipse is not death, it is remembrance." From that night onward, she and her followers began anew right the festival of the shadow's breath. Every eclipse they would gather by the river, their faces painted in ash and silver. They sang songs to both the Moon Mother and the serpent below, believing that each needed the other to keep the world whole. The chant rose like waves. Rahu devours, Chandra forgives, darkness drinks, light returns. Thus the balance lives. And so, through generations, the name Rahu changed from a curse to a prayer. The serpent became a god of transformation, symbol of hunger, loss, and renewal. The kingdoms flourished beneath this balance, but deep beneath the surface, in the hidden sea of the underworld, Rahu listened to their songs. He felt their fear, their devotion, their longing, and through them, he began to understand something new. He had touched the moon once. Now he wished to touch the souls of men. Chapter 3: The Temptation of the Serpent. In the depths beneath the earth, where the rivers of night flowed and the bones of forgotten gods slept, Rahu stirred. It had been countless ages since he had last risen. The world above had changed. Kingdoms had risen and fallen like waves breaking upon a silent shore. Yet the rhythm of light and shadow endured. Each time the moon returned to the sky, he felt its light pierce the abyss, calling to him, not with hatred, not with command, but with longing, the same soft, unbearable ache that had driven him to devour her long ago. But now, the light was not alone. Something else shimmered, with it something faint and fragile, but alive. It was the sound of prayer, the chanting of human voices drifting through water and stone, reaching even the heart of the underworld. They were calling his name. He had been cursed to hunger forever. But this was different. When mortals beat their drums and sang to the moon, when they cried his name, not in fear, but reverence, he felt something stir deep within him, a pulse unlike any he had known. Could it be that these small, fleeting beings, these mortals, had found meaning in his hunger? Could they see in him something more than shadow? He listened to them for 1,000 nights. He watched from the edges of dreams, from the reflections of still ponds, from the glint of eclipse light upon temple walls, and slowly he began to desire something he could not name. Not the moon, not the light, but the hearts that beat beneath it. One night, when the moon hung swollen and pale above the jungles of Ayodhya, Rahu shed his serpent form. From his vast body of darkness fell fragments of starlight, coalescing into a shape both human and divine. His eyes burned like twin suns trapped in shadow. His skin shimmered faintly with the residue of cosmic fire. He clothed himself in mist and moonlight, and his voice became the low hum of thunder waiting to break. Thus, Rahu walked the earth as a man. He wandered through rice fields, bathed in silver light, through forests heavy with the scent of wet soil and blooming orchids. The mortals looked upon him with awesome knelt. Some fled, but all felt the weight of his gaze. When he reached the city of Ayutthaya, he found the riverbanks filled with light. People were celebrating the festival of the shadow's breath. Lanterns floated upon the water like drifting stars, and children laughed as the drums echoed into the night. Rahu stood among them, unseen. For the first time, he felt warmth not from fire or light, but from the pulse of countless lives. He felt the sorrow and joy of being mortal, of knowing each breath was borrowed, and within him the old hunger twisted into something deeper, the desire to belong. Among the worshippers, he saw Hertha, priestess Sita, the dreamer who had once heard his voice beneath the world. She was older now, her eyes dark and calm as deep water. She sang softly to the moon, her voice trembling but resolute. When she saw Rahu, she did not flinch. Instead, she smiled, as though she had been waiting for him. "You have come," she said. "The serpent who eats the sky walks upon the earth." Rahu bowed his head. His voice was low, woven with thunder. "You dreamed of me, yes," she whispered, "and I understood. You devour the light, not to destroy it, but to feel it. That is the curse of all who love beauty too deeply." Her words struck him like lightning through still water. In her gaze, he saw no fear, only pity, and something that might have been love. And for the first time since the dawn of creation, Rahu felt shame. Sita led him into the temple, built for both moon and serpent. The air smelled of lotus and sandalwood, the stone walls carved with scenes of light and shadow entwined like lovers. Rahu touched the carvings with trembling fingers. "They worship me," he murmured, "but they do not know what I am." Sita answered, "They do not need to. You are the hunger that teaches us to cherish what we have. Without darkness, there can be no dawn." Rahu turned to her. "And yet, I would give all shadow for a single moment of your light." The temple shook as he spoke, the torches flickering as if afraid of his words. Sita looked into his burning eyes and said, "Then learn restraint, Lord of Shadow, for to touch the moon is to lose her." Outside, the drums of the festival thundered louder. The moon reached its highest, glowing like a silver heart in the heavens. Rahu felt its pultha, ancient hunger, rising once more. It called to him, tearing through his human guise, whispering of the endless void that awaited his return. He fell to his knees, the air trembling with his struggle. His form flickered half man, half serpent, caught between desire and destiny. Sita reached out, pressing her palm to his chest. "Do not let the darkness define you. You are not only hunger, you are remembrance." Her words burned brighter than the moonlight. For a heartbeat, Rahu believed he could resist. But then the eclipse began. The light dimmed. The shadow opened its jaws, and Rahuba, bound by his curse, rose once more into the heavens, torn between his love and his nature. From the temple steps, Sita watched as the moon was swallowed whole. She did not scream, nor pray, nor weep. She simply whispered into the wind, "Even the gods cannot escape the hunger of the heart." When the light returned, she knew he would never truly be gone. For Rahu lived in every shadow that kissed the light, and in every heart that longed for what it could never keep. Chapter 4. The Song of Sita. When the eclipse passed, the world exhaled as though waking from a long nightmare. The moon, pale and trembling, returned to her place in the heavens. But her light was weaker than before, like a heart that had forgotten its own rhythm. The people rejoiced, not knowing that something sacred had changed. For in that night of shadow and silence, a mortal had spoken to a god, and the god had listened. Sita stood alone upon the temple steps. The lanterns had burned low, their reflections drifting lazily on the river's surface. Ash from the incense still hung in the air, twisting like ghosts. Her hands were blackened from touching Rahu's fading form, her eyes still glowing faintly with the memory of his fire. She did not feel fear, only an aching emptiness, as if a part of her had followed the serpent into the sky. The people gathered around her at dawn, whispering prayers and questions. "Priestess," they asked, "what have you seen? What does the darkness mean?" And Sita, still trembling with divine echoes, spoke softly. "The darkness is not our enemy, it is our reflection. The serpent does not devour the moon to destroy her. He devours her so that she may be reborn." The crowd murmured in confusion, but as she raised her eyes to the fading moon, her voice became something more than human resonance that stirred both stone and spirit. Her song began as a whisper, carried on the morning wind. It was not a hymn to gods, nor a plea for salvation. It was a song of balance, a weaving of light and shadow, sorrow and hope. The melody rose like the first cry of dawn, threading through the city's golden towers, through the trees heavy with dew, through the hearts of all who heard. Children stopped their games. Monks in meditation opened their eyes. Even the river seemed to still its flow to listen. Sita sang of Rahutha, eternal hunger, the lonely god who chased the moon, not out of malice, but out of love. She sang of the moon, radiant yet compassionate, who allowed herself to be devoured so that the world might remember that all things, even light, must one day fade. Her voice became the bridge between heaven and earth, between the serpent below and the stars above. That night, when Sita slept, she dreamed again. She stood upon an endless sea, its surface shimmering with moonlight. From beneath the water, a voice rose, a low, trembling sound, like thunder heard from afar. "Little flame," Rahu's voice rumbled, "your song has reached even the deep places where I dwell. The gods themselves have listened." Sita knelt by the reflection of the moon and answered, "Then may it remind them, Lord of Shadow, that even the darkest hunger can serve the light." The water rippled. A vast shadow moved beneath it. "You give meaning to my curse," Rahu said. "Because of you, I will no longer rise in wrath. I will rise in remembrance from the sea of darkness." A single scale floated to the surface, black as obsidian, edged with faint silver. When Sita reached for it, it turned into a drop of ink, and when she awoke, that ink marked her palm like a crescent moon. In the days that followed, her song spread beyond Ayodhya. Travelers carried it through the jungles and mountains, across the delta and the ancient cities of stone. Wherever the eclipse returned, people would sing her melody, believing it kept the serpent's hunger gentle. They built shrines of dual light, one lamp burning white, one burning black, dedicated to both Rahu and the Moon Mother. Priests recited Sita's verses before every eclipse. "When the sky darkens, let the serpent eat. When light returns, let the serpent sleep. In hunger there is balance, in shadow there is grace." Thus began the Order of the Eclipse, a lineage of priestesses who guarded the secret of the song. Each generation, one was chosen to bear Sita's marka, dark crescent, upon the palmand, to sing when the moon was swallowed. They were called the keepers of the shadow's breath. Years passed like drifting clouds. Sita grew older, yet her eyes remained bright, reflecting both dawn and dusk. In her final days, she returned to the temple by the river, now covered in vines and memories. The people gathered, fearing the world would lose its voice when she passed. But Sita only smiled and whispered, "The song does not die with me. It lives in the silence between breaths." That night, as she lay beneath the full moon, a shadow passed across the sky. The eclipse began quiet, soft, reverent. No one cried out in fear. No drums were struck. They only listened. And in that perfect stillness, they heard her voice again, not from the temple, not from the earth, but from the heavens themselves. A melody woven from sorrow and peace. The song of Sita, echoing through the ages. Rahu devours, but Rahu remembers. The moon fades, but the moon forgives. Light and shadow are one breath, one heart, one endless dream. As the moon emerged once more, a faint shimmer like scales of silver drifted across the river. Those who looked closely swore they saw her reflection smiling back, her hand raised toward the sky, marked with the crescent of balance. From that day, every eclipse became not a curse, but a prayer. Every shadow, a reminder that even darkness could love the light. And in the deepest part of the night, if one listened closely, they could still hear her song carried by the wind, a song for those who seek peace between longing and loss. Chapter 5. The Return of the Serpent. 1,000 years passed, like the drifting of smoke. The kingdoms that once sang Sita's song turned to dust, their temples swallowed by roots and vines. The rivers shifted their paths, cities fell to silence, and the world changed its name. Yet, above it all, the moon continued her endless dance across the heavens, bright, serene, and watchful. But mortals are forgetful. Time wears down even devotion, grinding it into sand. The order of the eclipse, once the guardians of balance, faded into myth. The song that had kept Rahu's hunger at peace was forgotten, its words scattered like ashes upon the wind. New kings rose, caring little for the stories of old. They built towers of glass instead of temples of stone, and their light was not born from the moon, but from fire stolen from the heart of the earth. And in that fire, pride was born. The balance faltered. The world grew louder, brighter, hungrier. The night, once sacred, became a thing to be feared, conquered, and banished. Men laughed beneath the full moon, calling her a relic of superstition. No longer did they leave offerings upon the river, nor light the twin lamps of shadow and silver. The silence grew heavy. Beneath the earth, in the sea of black water, Rahu stirred once more. He dreamed of Sita's voice, the song that had soothed him for an age, but now it came to him twisted and broken, swallowed by noise. He opened his eyes, and the abyss shivered. The world above was too bright, too arrogant. It had forgotten the dance of light and shadow. And when mortals forget balance, the gods remember hunger. The stars trembled as Rahu rose, not as a whisper this time, but as a storm. The mountains groaned as he shed his ancient skin, scales cracking like thunderstones. The rivers darkened with his reflection, and the forests bowed as a serpent vast as the horizon uncoiled from beneath them. His breath became the wind, his eyes the eclipse itself. The moon glows without humility, he thundered. The mortals bask in her light and forget her tears. They have banished shadow from their heart sand, so it returns to claim its due. In the capital of the new kingdom of Vanapura, the eclipse began. No priestess sang, no bell rang. The people merely stared at the sky with fear and confusion, their faces pale as milk beneath the darkening light. The moon, proud and full, trembled as Rahu's shadow reached for her once again. Her voice, heard only in the realm of spirits, cried out, "Rahu, must this be our fate forever?" But Rahu's answer was sorrow, not rage. "I slept while the world forgot you. I rise now because it forgot us." And with that, he swallowed her light. The world plunged into darkness once more. But this time, there was no song, no prayer, only silence. The silence of disbelief, the silence of forgetting. Across the kingdoms, strange things began to stir. Sea boiled without wind. Animals fled the forests, crying as if chased by unseen fire. The rivers carried whispers, voices of long-dead gods, echoing through the currents. Everywhere, shadows deepened, stretching farther than they should. And in those shadows, people began to see eyes. Eyes vast and golden, like suns drowned in black water. Eyes that watched and waited. Yet not all hope was lost. In a small monastery, hidden deep within the forests of the old land of Aothea, an orphaned girl awoke screaming from a dream. Her name was Mira, and upon her palm was a mark, a black crescent, faint but glowing softly in the moonlight. She had dreamed of a woman made of light, standing beside a river of stars. The woman had sung to her, her voice woven of sorrow and grace. "The serpent has risen again, child of dusk. The world has forgotten the song. You must remember it." When Mira awoke, she could still hear the last note fading in her heart. And though she did not understand the words, she found herself whispering them to the night. "Rahu devours, but Rahu remembers. The moon fades, but the moon forgives." Outside, the eclipse began to wane. A single ray of light pierced the clouds, landing upon the mark on her palm. And in that moment, she knew the song was not lost. It had been waiting, sleeping within her blood. In the darkness above, Rahu felt it. A nota, single, trembling thread of the old song. It reached him through shadow and fire, through the scream of his hunger, and he paused. For the first time in an age, he hesitated. The moon's light returned through the crack in his jaws, spilling silver into the world once more. Rahu's eyes softened, sorrow threading through his infinite hunger. "So, one remembers," he whispered. "Then the world may yet be forgiven." And with that, he sank once more into the abyss, not in defeat, but in patience. For he knew the girl would come, and when she did, the song would rise again. Chapter the 6th. The child of the crescent mark. The eclipse faded, but the silence lingered. In the monastery of Aothea, the air still trembled with unseen echoes, the memory of an ancient hunger stirring beneath the world. And in the heart of that silence sat Mira, her palms trembling, her breath shallow as moonlight. The mark upon her hand still glowed, faintly pulsing in rhythm with something vast and distant. Every pulse sent a whisper through her veins, not words, not sound, but memory. A memory that was not hers. She closed her eyes, and suddenly she was standing not in the monastery, but on the edge of a river that shone like glass beneath the moon. The air was thick with the scent of lotus and rain. The stars burned brighter here, closer, as if watching her with quiet sorrow. And then she saw her, a woman of light and shadow, standing upon the water. Her hair drifted like silk smoke, her eyes pools of silver calm. It was Sita, the moon priestess, whose song had once calmed the serpent Rahu. "Child of the crescent," said Sita, her voice both near and infinite. "The serpent stirs once more. The world has forgotten balance, and so darkness seeks to teach it again." Mira bowed without knowing why. Her body moved, as though remembering an old ritual. "Why me?" she whispered. "I am no priestess. I am no singer." Sita smiled, soft as dawn breaking. "You carry my mark, not because you were chosen, but because you remembered. Memory is the root of all faith. The song still lives within those who listen." She raised her hands, and from her palms drifted threads of silver light. They wrapped around Mira's wrist, seeping into her skin, burning cold. "Find the 3 echoes of the song," said Sita, "the verse of birth, the verse of balance, and the verse of return. Only when they are sung together will Rahu's hunger be stilled once more." The light flared, Mira gasped, Dan woke. Morning broke across the forest monastery. The monks moved silently, tending to their prayers, unaware of the shadow that had touched their home. Mira sat among them, her thoughts a storm. The words 3 echoes burned in her mind like coals. That day, the abbot called her to the temple's inner sanctum, a chamber filled with murals long faded by time. On the far wall was a carving of a great serpent swallowing the moon, and beneath it a single line of script still legible among the moss. "When the serpent rises again, seek the river that flows backward." Mira felt her heart tighten. She had dreamed of that river. The abbot, an old man whose eyes seemed older still, watched her carefully. "You have been marked by the old powers," he said. "The night spirits whisper of you." "What did they show you?" Mira hesitated, then told him everything, of the dream, of Sita, of the song. When she finished, the old man sighed. "Then the time has come," he murmured. "Our forebears once kept the knowledge of the old song, but it was lost when the temples fell. You must go to where the river runs against its own heart, the Mekong's hidden source, deep within the mountains. There lies the first verse, the verse of birth." That night, as Mira prepared to leave, the mark on her palm began to glow brighter. The moon hung low, half shrouded in mist, and from the edge of the forest came a whisper, a hiss, soft and slow, like breath over water. "The serpent watches," said a voice in her mind. "He remembers your soul." Mira turned, but saw only shadows. Yet she did not feel fear, only the strange certainty that the darkness itself was aware of her. And deep within it, Rahu stirred, feeling the faint echo of a voice that had once soothed his endless hunger. He did not yet understand that it came from her, but he would. The journey began at dawn. Mira crossed forests that sang with cicadas, rivers that glowed faintly beneath the starlight, and ruins half buried beneath the earth. Everywhere she went, she saw signs, the moon carved into ancient stones, the shape of the serpent hidden in temple walls. And sometimes, when she slept, she dreamed of Sita's song again, only fragments, but enough to keep her moving. "The moon is not pure, the serpent not evil. The light is born from shadow, and shadow from light." These lines circled her thoughts, soothing and terrifying at once. On the 7th night of her journey, she reached the river. It flowed strangely its surface, moving one way, its depths the other, as though caught between two worlds. The jungle around it was silent, save for the beating of her heart. She knelt by the water, touching its cold surface, and as her fingers brushed it, the current shifted. From beneath the waves rose a figure, a woman with skin like obsidian and eyes of pale blue fire. She was neither alive nor dead, her form half water, half light. "I am Namara, keeper of the first verse," she said. "If you would learn it, you must offer something equal to memory." Mira bowed. "I have nothing." Namara's eyes softened, then offer truth. And so Mira spoke not as a priestess, but as a girl. She confessed her doubts, her fear, her smallness in a world of gods and monsters. When she finished, the river grew calm. Mira reached out a hand, touching Mira's brow. A note rang through the air, low, ancient, and full of sorrow. Was the verse of birth, the sound of creation itself, of the first moonlight dripping into the sea, of Rahu's first breath when the world was still unbroken. Mira wept as she heard it. "Carry it within you," said Mira. "But remember, every verse sung draws the serpent closer." The figure faded, sinking back into the water. Mira stood alone once more, the night alive with the hum of unseen power. The mark on her hand burned bright, and above, the moon flickered as though it recognized her. Far below, Rahu opened his eyes again. For the first time in centuries, he heard the faint echo of the song of balance carried upon the wind. He did not rage, he did not hunger, he simply listened. "She remembers," he whispered. "Then so must I," and in that moment, the darkness smiled. Chapter 7, The River That Remembers the River, sang that night. Its voice was not of rushing water, but of memory deep, layered, and alive. As Mira stood upon its bank, she felt it breathing beneath her feet, a pulse older than stone. The air shimmered faintly, as though the moon itself leaned closer to listen. The verse of birth still echoed inside her. It was not a melody she could sing, not truly. It lived in her bones, in the rhythm of her blood. Every beat of her heart carried a fragment of creation, and the world seemed to respond. The wind bent toward her whisper. The trees stilled when she passed. Even the stars dimmed, as if in reverence or warning. Mira knelt and cupped the river's water in her palms. For a moment, her reflection flickered. It was not her own face she saw, but 1,000 faces, men and women of forgotten ages, their eyes hollow yet kind. They mouthed her name soundlessly. "Who are you?" she whispered. The river replied in 100 overlapping voices, neither male nor female. "We are the ones who sang before you. The river remembers all things, even the serpent." A tremor moved through the ground, subtle at first, then rising a long, deep vibration that seemed to hum within her chest. The moonlight upon the water rippled and broke apart. For a heartbeat, Mira thought she saw the shadow of a vast coil beneath the surface. But it vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only silence and the low, mournful song of frogs hidden in the reeds. As dawn approached, Mira followed the river downstream. Mist curled around her ankles like spirits, reluctant to let her go. She walked until the forest gave way to plains-wide stretches of tall grass that swayed in slow rhythm, golden beneath the newborn light. At the edge of that plain lay a ruined stupa, half swallowed by roots. Upon its walls, she saw the same crescent mark that burned upon her palm. She reached out, tracing the symbol. The stone beneath her fingers was warm, pulsing, faintly alive. A whisper brushed her ear. "All rivers flow to memory, but only the brave drink from it." Mira turned sharply. A figure stood behind her, a man dressed in tattered monk's robes, his eyes pale like clouded glass. He held a wooden staff carved with the heads of serpents. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady. "I am Akan, the keeper of the forgotten mouth," he said. "Long ago, when the gods still spoke through storms, this stupa marked the place where the river first remembered the sky. You have awakened it." He studied her hand. "You bear the mark of the moon's sorrow. Then the serpent will come for you." Mira met his gaze. "Let him I seek the second verse, the verse of balance." At this, Akan bowed slightly, though his expression was grim. Balance, he murmured, is not found in light or shadow, but in their surrender to each other. The serpent once understood this, until the gods broke him. He turned toward the river, raising his staff. The water began to churn, spiraling upward in a thin column that glimmered like glass. Within it, shapes moved, faces, serpents, fragments of stars. Akon's voice deepened, resonant, almost divine. Listen and remember, he intoned. The river does not flow in one direction. What has been done above echoes below. To master the verse of balance, you must walk where both worlds meet. The column of water collapsed, drenching the earth, and there, at Mira's feet, the ground opened. A hidden staircase descended into darkness. The air below was cold and damp. The walls were slick with moss that glowed faintly blue. Mira descended slowly, her footsteps echoing against the stone. The deeper she went, the louder the sound of rushing water became, though there was no river in sight. At last she emerged into a cavern so vast it seemed carved by gods. Water hung suspended in the air, flowing upward as well as down, forming an endless spiral. In its center stood a single stone pedestal, upon which lay a silver shell shaped like a crescent moon. Mira stepped closer. The mark on her hand blazed. The moment her fingers touched the shell, the world shifted. She was standing on a field of stars. Above her loomed the moon, enormous and near enough to touch. Below, the sea shimmered in infinite reflection. Between them coiled a massive shape, dark, majestic, terrible, Rahu. But this was not the monstrous shadow from legends. He was beautiful in his vastness, his scales gleaming like obsidian, soaked in starlight. His eyes burned golden, full of sorrow, older than gods. "You have found me," he said, his voice like thunder rolling through clouds. "The child who carries the moon's mark." Mira tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. "Why do you hunt the moon?" she managed. "Why do you bring darkness?" Rahu's great head lowered until his eyes met hers. "I do not hunt her, I love her. But love, when denied light, becomes hunger." His words trembled through the void. He opened his jaws not to devour, but to breathe, and from within his throat poured a low, haunting note. It was music, but vast beyond comprehension. It carried the weight of galaxies, the ache of centuries. Mira closed her eyes. The sound flowed into her, not as fear, but understanding. She saw visions. Rahu coiling around the newborn moon, sheltering her from the chaos of creation. The gods mistaking his embrace for violence, their spears tearing his body apart. The curse that chained him forever to hunger. Tears slipped down her face. When the note faded, she whispered, "I see now. The eclipse is not destruction. It is reunion." Rahu smiled faintly, his form beginning to dissolve into light. "Then you have learned the second verse," he said. "Balance is the silence between breath and hunger." The stars folded inward. The world broke like glass. Mira fell. She awoke upon the riverbank once more. The dawn had turned golden, and Akan was gone. Only her reflection remained in the water, yet this time, when she looked, the serpent's eyes gazed back, calm and knowing. The mark on her palm had changed. Now, within the crescent, a single star shone. She whispered softly the verse of balance. The river stirred, its surface glinting with hidden light. And far away, beneath the mountains, Rahu opened his eyes, again no longer in rage, but in remembrance. The hunger within him had quieted, replaced by something deeper. He whispered into the darkness, "When the moon sings the final verse, I will rise, not to devour, but to return. And the world, for the first time in 1,000 years, dreamed of peace. Chapter 8. The city beneath the eclipse. The river no longer sang. It hummed a low, patient sound like the heartbeat of the world. The water carried whispers of salt and stone as Mira journeyed eastward toward the lands where mountains kissed the sea. The mark on her hand had dimmed, but within it burned a steady star. The second verse lived inside her now, and with it came both peace and peril. For each step she took, the sky darkened, the moon waxed fuller, its edge bruised by shadow. An eclipse was coming. The monks of every village she passed bowed to her unknowingly. Some wept, others hid. They saw in her eyes the light of the old prophecies, the reflection of Rahu's return. She did not tell them who she was, nor what she carried. How could she? Who would believe that the serpent they feared was not a monster, but a broken god seeking forgiveness? At the edge of the Mekong Delta, the land began to sink. Temples, half buried in silt, jutted from the water like bones. Here, the legends whispered of Rattanathani, the city swallowed by the moon's tears. It was said that when Rahu first devoured the light, his sorrow rained upon the earth, and the city beneath the delta drowned in silver. Mira arrived at dusk. The air shimmered faintly, thick with incense that had not been burned by human hands in centuries. Fishermen refused to cast their nets near this place, they said. The river still breathed, and it did. When the first shadow of the eclipse brushed the moon, the waters began to stir. The current turned upon itself. The sound of bells echoed from beneath the surface. The city was waking. Mira stepped into the shallows. The water rose around her ankles, cool and heavy. Then, as if recognizing her, the river parted not completely, but just enough for her to see what lay below. Through the silver-tinted surface shimmered towers of jade and gold. Their roofs curved like dragon wings, their streets woven with light. Rattanathani, the city beneath the eclipse. She took a breath and descended. The water did not drown her. It embraced her, folding around her like silk. With each step, she felt time loosen its grip. The deeper she went, the more she sensed echoes, children laughing, drums beating, the voices of priests singing hymns to the moon. The city was not dead, it was remembering. At the heart of it all rose a great temple, its spire piercing the underside of the water like a blade. Upon its gate, carved in forgotten script, were the words, "When balance returns, the eater shall weep no more." Mira entered. The temple's inner hall was vast and silent. Columns shaped like coiled serpents lined the walls, their eyes set with black pearls that seemed to follow her every move. At the far end stood an altar of moonstone, upon which rested an ancient gong split in half. The air around it shimmered faintly, heavy with dormant power. When she approached, the mark on her palm ignited. The water around her rippled, and a voice, soft, ageless, sorrowful, filled the chamber. "Why have you come to the drowned city, child of crescent and star?" Mira bowed her head to learn the final verse, the verse of return. Silence. Then, from the shadows behind the altar, a figure emerged. It was neither spirit nor mortal, but something between. Her body was made of flowing water, her eyes 2 full moons. Her hair drifted in the current like threads of night. "I am Lamara, the keeper of the drowned song," she said, "and I have waited for you, Mira of the mark." "How do you know my name?" Mira asked. "Because every ripple of the river carries it. You have walked the path of remembrance. You have sung the first two verses, the breath of creation and the silence of balance. But the verse of return cannot be taught. It must be remembered. Mira frowned. Remembered from what? Lamara smiled faintly. From the darkness within you. The air shifted. The eclipse reached its peak. The moon above was now fully devoured, and the city shuddered as though the heavens themselves were weeping. A pulse of black light spread through the temple. The gong upon the altar trembled, then shattered into dust, and from that dust Rahu rose. He did not come as a beast this time. He came as shadow, made flesh, tall and terrible, his eyes molten gold. The temple bowed beneath his presence. The water itself bent toward him. You, he said, his voice a storm beneath the sea. You who carries her song. Mira stood firm. Rahu, he tilted his head, and for a moment she saw not the monster of myth, but a weary god who had endured too many lifetimes. His gaze softened. Do you know what it means to devour the moon? He asked quietly. It is not hunger, it is grief. I eat her light because it is the only way I can feel her warmth. Mira's throat tightened. Then let her light return. And if I do, said Rahu, what becomes of me? I am born of shadow. Without her, I am nothing. But with her, I am cursed. He reached out, his hand massive. Trembling Anne pressed it to her mark. At his touch, pain and memory flooded her mind. She saw through his eyes the night of his banishment, the god's betrayal, the first eclipse that birthed despair. Tears streamed down her face. You loved her, she whispered. You always have. He smiled sadly. And I always will. The temple walls began to crack. The city groaned beneath the weight of its awakening. Lamara's voice echoed through the collapsing chamber. Now, Mira, remember the final verse. It is not sung yet, is surrendered. Mira closed her eyes. She raised her palms toward the dying light filtering through the water. And then she gave herself to the song. The verse of return was not a sound, it was a release. The currents froze, the moon flared, piercing through Rahu's shadow. Light and darkness merged not in battle, but in embrace. For one infinite moment, the serpent coiled around the moon, not to consume it, but to hold it. The eclipse glowed gold. When the light faded, the city stilled, the water calmed. Mira opened her eyes. Rahu was gone. In his place, only the reflection of the moon shimmered across the temple floor hole, bright and at peace. Lamara approached, her eyes gentle. You have sung all 3 verses, Mira, but every song has its silence. The serpent is not only returned to the place beyond hunger, as must you one day. Mira bowed her head. The mark on her palm dimmed until only the faintest crescent remained. Then it is done, she whispered. Lamara smiled. For now, the water rose around her again, lifting her gently toward the surface. When she emerged, dawn was breaking. The moon hung pale in the morning sky, whole once more, and the river sang. Chapter 9. The dawn after darkness. The world had changed, though few yet knew it. At dawn, the rivers shimmered as if woven from mirrors. The birds sang, but their melodies carried an ancient sorrow. And across the horizon, the moon still lingered, faint and ghostly, unwilling to depart from the sun's embrace. Mira awoke upon the riverbank, her body heavy, her breath cold as dew. For a moment, she did not remember who she was. The song, the light, the shadow had all blurred into one long dream. Then she saw the mark upon her palm, a pale crescent, fading with each heartbeat. The verse of return had ended, and yet something still waited. Villagers from the nearby settlements found her soon after sunrise. They whispered of omens of how the eclipse had trembled but not devoured the light, how the sky had glowed gold instead of crimson. Some fell to their knees before her, others fled. They called her by many names: Daughter of the Moon, Serpent's Bride, Voice of Return. Mira only shook her head. "I am no god," she said softly. But even she did not believe those words entirely. For in her dreams, she still heard Rahu's heartbeat echo beneath the waves. As she traveled inland, she found the world stirring in strange new ways. The temples once devoted to the sun god now burned with twin flames, one of gold, one of silver. Priests spoke of visions where the serpent and the moon danced as equals. Farmers found their fields blooming where salt once lay. Yet, in the deep jungles, shadows gathered thicker than before. At the mountain monastery of Praling, the eldest monk awaited her arrival. His eyes were clouded, his voice like rustling leaves. "You have done what no mortal could, child," he said. "You have bound shadow and light. But balance does not mean peace, it means awakening." "Awakening?" Mira asked. The monk nodded toward the horizon. When the serpent ceased to devour the moon, he returned to the realm of dreams. But dreams, too, have hunger. And now the gods stir from slumber. They feel the emptiness left by what was restored. Mira frowned. "Then it isn't over." "No. The eclipse may end, but its memory endures. The gods will remember the taste of Firend. The serpent will remember the warmth he lost." His words fell like stones into still water. Something deep inside her began to ache again. That night, as she slept beside the monastery's shrine, she dreamt of the ocean. The water was calm, silver under starlight. From its depths rose a single black coiler shadow, brushing the surface, circling the moon's reflection. "Mira." The voice was gentle, distant. "Do not mourn me." She turned. Rahu stood upon the water, his form translucent, his golden eyes dimmed to ember. "You're still here," she whispered. "For now, the moon remembers, and so I remain within her dreams. You have freed me from hunger, but not from longing." She stepped toward him, but the sea grew deeper with every step. "Was I wrong to sing the verse?" she asked. Rahu shook his head. "No, you sang what the world had forgotten. You reminded even the gods that light and shadow are kin. But remember, my Ratha balance you restored must be guarded, or it will break anew." "How?" she asked, desperately. But he was already fading. "You will know when the dawn bleeds silver again." And then he was gone. The ocean fell silent. Mira woke before sunrise. The mark on her hand had cooled, but in the stillness she heard something, a hum, faint yet growing stronger. It came not from the earth, but from above. She looked up. The moon had not vanished. It hung above the dawn sky, pale and trembling, as if uncertain whether to stay or depart. Around its edge, a thin ring of shadow moved alive, watching. The monks began to chant. Bells tolled through the mountain air. Mira rose slowly to her feet, eyes wide. The hum deepened into a pulse. It was then she understood. The eclipse was not a cycle, it was a breath. The world was inhaling again. By mid-morning, the sky brightened to gold. The monks said prayers of gratitude, believing the gods had blessed them. But Mira knew differently. The serpent was not gone. He had simply turned inward, slumbering in the dream between light and dark. And the moon, gentle, unbroken, now held his spirit close. In every reflection of water, she saw his shape drifting faintly beneath the surface. In every silence between songs, she heard his whisper. The verse of return had not ended. It had only changed its rhythm. Weeks passed. Mira continued her pilgrimage, walking the lands that once trembled under Rahu's shadow. She helped rebuild temples, taught the villagers the new hymns of balance, and in each place she buried a silver lotus symbol of peace between night and day. Children followed her path, calling her May Chantra, mother of the moon's breath. But when she gazed at the horizon, she often wondered if peace was merely the pause between storms. Then, one evening beneath a blood-orange sky, she came upon a ruined shrine, half swallowed by roots, forgotten by time. Within it, she found carvings of the old gods, Vishaya, the queen of radiance, Kulan, the lord of depths, and Rahu, coiled around them both. Below the carvings lay an inscription: "When the eater sleeps, the world shall dream. When he dreams, the gods shall wake." Mira traced the words with trembling fingers. The hum in her palm stirred again. The twilight deepened. The first stars began to blink awake. And somewhere, beyond the clouds, the moon shifted just slightly, as though turning its face toward her. She closed her eyes. "I will guard the dream," she whispered, "until the dawn comes again." The wind carried her vow across the forest, far beneath the sea, where silver and darkness intertwined. A vast eye opened once more gentle, knowing the serpent was listening. Chapter X. The gods awakened. The silver lotus fields shimmered beneath the night sky, their petals glowing like fallen stars. Mira stood among them, the cool wind carrying the scent of rain and incense. She had traveled for moonsteaching, healing, remembering, but tonight the air itself trembled. The silence between breaths felt heavier than mountains. Something vast was stirring, something older than even the serpent. She had dreamed of it for weeks, a tremor in the heavens, a heartbeat in the void. The monks had spoken of omens, the rivers reversing, the stars forming patterns unseen for millennia. The sky had begun to ripple at dusk, as if the firmament itself were a veil stretched too thin. And then it began. The first sign came from the east. From the ruined city of Kulan, the ocean rose without wind. The sea's surface convulsed, spiraling into a whirlpool that glowed red like molten iron from its depths. A colossal figure emerged, a being woven of coral and shadow, with eyes like eclipsed suns. "I am Kulan, Lord of Depths," the voice boomed across the horizon. "The sleep of the serpent has ended. The balance offends the order of gods. Who dares defy our hunger?" The sound alone shattered mountains, forests bowed, rivers split. Mira fell to her knees, clutching her chest as her heart answered the voice with a pulse of silver light. "Kulan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You cannot unmake what has been restored." "Child of the moon," thundered the god, "you sing songs that were forbidden before the dawn of time. You bind shadow and flame with mortal words. Do you think your song can silence eternity?" And from the west came the second sign. In the mountains of fire, the heavens split open. Out poured the radiant Queen Vishya, goddess of light, reborn in gold and rage. Her wings blazed with 1,000 suns, her laughter ringing like shattering glass. "Balance," she cried. "There is no balance, solely dominion. The moon belongs to me, as it always has. The serpent is corruption, hunger, chaos, and you, mortal girl, are its echo." Mira looked up through tears. "He is not chaos. He is the other half of your light. You cannot exist without him." "Then I shall prove it by erasing him and you." The world ignited. Flames swept across the sky, devouring clouds, melting rivers into molten glass. Kulan's tidal roar rose to meet it, turning the sea to steam. The heavens became a battlefield, fire against water, creation against abyss, and at the center of it stood Mira. She raised her hands. The mark upon her palm pulsed like a heartbeat. From her chest came the echo of the ancient verse, the melody that once lulled Rahu into peace, but now it sounded incomplete. The world shuddered as if listening. "Rahu," she cried into the storm, "if you still dream, hear me." For a long moment there was nothing. Then, from the horizon, the moon began to bleed. A crack appeared across its Fisa, fracture of light, splitting silver and shadow apart. A vast ripple of energy swept over the world. Trees bent as if in prayer. The ocean froze mid-wave. From the heart of that rift, a voice rose deep, mournful, endless. Mira, the serpent's whisper, shook the stars. His form emerged faintly within the moonlighter, colossal silhouette, half-formed, chained by beams of gold. The gods had bound him there, even in his dreams. "You must not call me," Rahu said, his voice fading in pain. "If I awaken, the heavens will fall." "But they are already falling," Mira answered. "They would destroy the world to preserve their pride." Vishaya's laughter cut through the void. "Then let it burn, mortal. A new dawn must rise over your ashes." The goddess descended, her spear of light striking toward Mira's heart. But before it could reach her, the mark on Mira's palm burst open, releasing a shockwave of pale silver flame. The lotus fields ignited, each blossom turning into a sphere of light that rose into the sky. Their glow met the goddess's radiance and did not falter. For the first time, Vishya hesitated. Her flame met something pure, neither darkness nor light, but memory. Mira's voice trembled as she began to sing not the verse of return, but a forgotten stanza. One not found in any temple, O flame that devours, O tide that drowns, meet in the hollow where silence resounds. For, in the breath between shadow and gleam, the world remembers its ancient dream. The air thickened with power, the moon's crack began to seal. Kulan roared in defiance, his form rising higher, but the sea beneath him turned to mist. Vishaya screamed as her fire dimmed, her wings shattering into fragments of gold. And through it all, the serpent stirred. Rahu's golden eye opened fully. The chains of light snapped like silk. The heavens convulsed as his voice rolled over creation. Enough. Every star in the sky flickered. Vishya and Kulan froze, their divine forms trembling under his gaze. "You dream because I dream," Rahu said, "and you wake because I breathe. Have you forgotten what we are? We are not masters of this world, we are its reflection." His coils unfurled across the sky, neither monstrous nor divine, but eternal, woven of moonlight and shadow. Mira fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. He was beautiful and terrible, infinite and kind. "Sleep now," he whispered to the gods. "Sleep until the world learns balance again." And with a sweep of his tail, the light consumed everything. When Mira opened her eyes, the world was quiet. The flames were gone. The sea was calm. The moon shone whole once more. The temples that once rose in pride now stood humble, vines reclaiming their stones. In the silence that followed, she felt a presence beside her, a shadow, faint but warm. "You sang the final verse," Rahu said softly. "The gods will dream again, and this time they will remember." Mira smiled faintly. "And you? I am part of the dream now." But wherever the moon touches the river, you will find me." The serpent's image dissolved into silver mist, fading into the night. Mira bowed her head and whispered, "Then I will keep watch until the dawn." Chapter 11. The final verse. The world was quiet again. But silence, Mira soon learned, is not the end of sound. It is the breath drawn before a new song begins. For weeks, the lands slept under silver skies. The rivers glowed faintly by night, whispering the name of the serpent who had once devoured the moon. The people rebuilt what had burned, and in every village, the same prayer echoed, "May the light never hunger again." Yet Mira felt a weight in her chest, a pull toward the horizon, where the moon lingered low and swollen, as though watching her. The verse she had sung still echoed faintly in her bones, its final line incomplete. Balance had been restored, yes, but at a cost not yet paid. She wandered north, following the old pilgrim roads, through forests that had forgotten the sun. The trees whispered her name as she passed. The spirits of the land, once timid, now bowed to her with reverence. At the edge of the great Mekong, she found the old shrine, the place where she had first sung the verse of return. Its stones were cracked, its statues half buried by moss, yet the air shimmered with unseen life. The silver lotus she had planted there had grown enormous, its petals touching the river's edge, glowing faintly under the moonlight. "It begins where it ended," she whispered. The wind stirred in reply. That night, as she knelt before the lotus, a familiar voice spoke from the water. "You feel it too, don't you?" Mira's heart leaped. The ripples shimmered, forming the faint silhouette of Rahu's eyes, soft now, not golden, but gentle silver. "Why do you still linger?" she asked. "I thought you had become one with the dream." "I did," he answered. "But dreams are fragile things. The gods sleep again, but their hunger stirs in mortal hearts. The world will crave dominion, as it always has. Balance cannot last unless someone guards the song." Mira looked down at her hands. "Then teach me how to guard it." "You already know," Rahu said. "You must finish the song." She froze. "The final verse." He nodded slowly. "The one that binds the dream not to the gods, nor to me, but to the world itself. A verse that can only be sung once, for it demands the singer's spirit as its final note." Mira's breath trembled. "If I sing it, I will die." Rahu's gaze softened. "Not die, change. You will become part of the breath between day and night. You will live wherever light meets shadow." She closed her eyes. The wind howled. The river murmured her name. When she opened them again, the moon had darkened. A thin shadow crept across its surface, the first whisper of another eclipse. The gods were stirring. All across the world, people screamed. Crops withered under pale light. Birds fell silent. The ocean began to boil. The very heavens trembled as the hunger returned, not divine this time, but human. Greed, fear, and pride, rising from the hearts of mortals who could not accept balance. Mira rose to her feet. "Then this is the price of their peace," she said quietly. She stepped into the river. The water glowed under her touch, silver spreading like veins of light. The lotus at the bank began to hum, its petals unfolding wide enough to cradle her like a throne. Above, Rahu's voice trembled through the waves. "Mira, you do not have to. I do," she said. "If the world forgets the dream, the gods will awaken again. Let them sleep. Let mortals dream freely." She lifted her hands, and for the last time, she sang. The song began as a whisper, but it carried across the earth. Every river heard it. every flame bent toward it. The mountains echoed the sound, until even the sky seemed to weep. O heart that devours, and heart that gives, breathe through the night, so the world still lives. In silver's grace and shadow's art, let day and dream no longer part. The heavens split open, the moon blazed brighter than ever before. From its center, Rahu's vast form appeared not as a serpent now, but as a flowing current of starlight and shadow. He circled the world once more, coiling gently around it. You have done it, he whispered. You've woven the dream into the wind. His form began to dissolve into the moonlight. Mira smiled faintly as the river rose around her. Good, she whispered. Then the world can finally rest. The water embraced her like silk. Her body shimmered, her voice echoing in every ripple. And as she vanished beneath the surface, her final note lingered in the air, soft, eternal, unbroken. The moonlight dimmed to silver, the eclipse passed, and when dawn returned, the world was new. The gods did not wake again. But sometimes, when the mist curled low over the Mekong and the river shone like glass, the villagers swore they could hear a song soft as the breath of wind between night and morning. They called it the final verse of Mira, and none dared sing it aloud. But every lotus that bloomed upon the river carried her light. And beneath their roots, something vast and kind coiled in eternal sleep. Epilogue. The eternal dream dawn came gently, as if afraid to wake the world. Mist hung low over the Mekong, rolling like the breath of some vast, sleeping creature. The water shimmered in hues of gold and silver, and for a moment it seemed that the river itself dreamed. No storm had touched its banks in many years. No drought had cracked its fields. The people spoke in hushed tones of an age of balance, an age born not of conquest, but of remembering. Children grew up hearing the tale of the Moon Eater and the girl who sang him to sleep. They did not fear the eclipse anymore. When the shadow touched the moon, they lit lanterns of silver paper and set them afloat upon the water, whispering, "Rest well, Mira. Rest well, Serpent of the moon." And as the lanterns drifted downstream, the air shimmered with something unseen, something vast, ancient, and content. In the depths of the Mekong, where the sunlight fades and the world grows quiet, there lies a realm untouched by time. There, among forests of coral and gardens of stone, a silver serpent coils in endless slumber. His scales glimmer like moonlight beneath the waves. Around him, lotuses bloom without sun, their petals singing with the heartbeat of the world. Rahu dreams. But his dream is no longer hunger, it is harmony. He dreams of Mira. Her voice still echoes in his sleep, guiding the rhythm of his pulse. Her spirit, woven into the wind, hums softly whenever night and day touch. In every shadow, she whispers calm. In every gleam of light, she breathes warmth. Together, they form the unseen thread that binds heaven and earth, silence and song, shadow and flame. Once each generation, a child is born with a mark, like a silver crescent upon the palm. The elders say it is Mira's blessing, a reminder that balance must be learned anew, not inherited. Such children grow to hear the river's voice, to see dreams in daylight, to walk the line between the worlds. And when the moon wanes, they sit by the water and hum a tune no one else remembers. The lotus blooms brighter for it, the river sighs, and far below, in the stillness of the abyss, the serpent shifts just slightly, as though smiling. Time has no meaning there. Empires will rise and fall above the water. and still the Mekong will sing. When men forget balance, the river will flood. When they remember, it will recede. For it carries within its current the pulse of Mira's final song, the dream she gave her life to preserve. Some say that during certain eclipses, when the world holds its breath and the moon burns red, you can see two shadows upon its face. One, the ancient serpent watching. The other, the shape of a woman standing beside him, her hand resting upon his brow. The people bow when they see it. They do not pray for mercy, nor for favor. They whisper only, "May the dream never end." Thus the song became silence. Thus silence became the world. And thus the serpent of the moon slept forever guarded, not by gods, but by love. The end. The Moon Eater, the eclipse serpent of the ancient kingdoms, a Southeast Asian epic, retold in 12 chapters and one eternal dream.